Hello and welcome to the Alpha Wizard Week in Review. I'm Lucas, joined by my partner Ronnie. Together we bring more than 40 years of combined experience to this strategy. Let's start with the week in numbers. Alpha Wizard returned 0.6% this week. The S&P 500 rose 1.4% and the Nasdaq gained 1.8%. So we trailed the broad market this week and we'll come back to why. Year to date, we are up 18.8% against 10.7% for the S&P 500. Our deepest drawdown this year was 14.9%, and our since inception Sortino ratio is 1.7. Here is the year-to-date picture. Our strategy against the S&P 500 since January 1st, with this week shaded, you can see a strong first half, a sharp drop in early July, then a small recovery inside the band.
Thanks, Lucas. I'm Ronnie, and I look after trading operations. First, a quick look at the broader market. Large company stocks drifted higher this week, with technology leading the way. It was a calm, positive week overall, ahead of next week's inflation data. Now to our risk overlay, the third pillar of our process. Every night, the system recalculates more than 20 risk indicators across markets and sets our equity exposure for the next day. Right now, we sit at about 49% invested in what we call cruising mode. That means a balanced stance with roughly half the book in stocks and half in cash. The overlay does not predict where markets go next. It is built to control how hard a downturn can hit us, not to call tops or bottoms.
Now let's open the hood on what moved. This was a real split week under the surface. On the winning side, Seagate, a maker of hard disk data storage drives, gained 11%. Lumentum, which makes optical parts for fiber networks, rose about 10%. And SanDisk, a flash memory chip maker, added nearly 10%. On the other side, Bloom Energy, a fuel cell power company, fell almost 10%. Intel dropped nearly 9%, and TTM Technologies, a circuit board maker, lost 6%. So how did a week with these big swings end up almost flat? Two reasons. We hold 15 names at equal weight, so each is only about 1/15 of the book, and the overlay kept us just 49% invested, so roughly half our money sat in cash and cushioned the moves. Across sectors, our technology holdings rose 1.5%, a touch ahead of the technology sector benchmark at 1.2%.
Let's take a closer look at one holding, Lumentum Holdings. Lumentum makes optical components, the lasers and light-based parts that move data through fiber networks and inside AI data centers. This chart shows its last 6 months. The line climbs steeply from left to right, up about 140% over that stretch. You can also see a clear pullback this month before this week's bounce. This week, the stock rose about 10%, one of our strongest contributors. Earlier in July, it had given back some ground, down roughly 6% for the month so far. We hold Lumentum the same way we hold every name, at equal weight, as one of 15 positions. It qualified through our systematic screen, and it stays only as long as it keeps meeting those rules at each monthly review. No single stock carries the portfolio, and none is protected on its own.
Here's what we're watching in the week ahead. It's a heavy week for economic data. On Tuesday, the Consumer Price Index, the main inflation report, is due. Wednesday brings producer prices, which track inflation earlier in the supply chain. Thursday adds retail sales and the weekly jobless claims figures. On the company side, Seagate reports earnings on Thursday after the market closes. These dates are estimates, so please confirm them before acting on anything. As always, we don't try to guess these numbers in advance. Our systematic rules read the data as it arrives and adjust our exposure from there.
That's our week. If you'd like to follow along, you can copy Alpha Wizard on eToro, read the full breakdown in our cockpit, or subscribe to our newsletter. You'll also find us on our social channels. One important note before we go. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Your capital is at risk. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.